In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 MLB games happening on April 4th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 MLB games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Los Angeles Dodgers versus Washington Nationals. There's something about a team that knows what it feels like to be the last one standing, and there's something even scarier about a team that's done it twice in a row. The back-to-back World Series champions just rolled into the nation's capital and made a very loud statement yesterday, putting up 13 runs in the series opener and reminding everyone that the engine is finally starting to hum. That offense, which honestly looked a little sluggish for the first week of the season, averaging under 4 runs a game through its first 6 contests, just exploded in a way that felt almost inevitable. Shohei Ohtani launched a 3-run blast for his first homer of 2026. Kyle Tucker added a solo shot of his own, and just like that, the bats that carried this team to a legendary Game 7 comeback in Toronto last November are waking up. And here's the thing, the guy on the mound today for the boys in blue is Tyler Glasnow. We're not talking about a back-of-the-rotation arm feeling his way through early April. We're talking about a 6'8" flamethrower who just delivered a quality start in his season debut against Arizona, going 6 strong innings while punching out 6 and scattering just 4 hits. His curveball is genuinely one of the nastiest pitches in all of baseball, and if you watched his final spring training outing where he struck out 11 Angels in 5 frames with that thing, you know what I'm talking about. The Dodgers trust this guy in October. They started him in the World Series, and there's a reason Dave Roberts pencils him in for the biggest moments this franchise has to offer. Now, the Nationals do have some things working in their favor. Their offense has actually been pretty hot to start the year, and their team batting average through the first week ranked near the top of the league. But let's zoom out and remember what we're working with here. This is a team that won 66 games last season, had the second worst home record in all of baseball, and this afternoon they're sending Jake Irvin to the mound against one of the most loaded lineups on the planet. Irvin, to his credit, made some real mechanical adjustments this offseason, dropping his arm angle down to around 25 degrees and adding a revamped sweeper-style slider that's gotten some buzz in pitch modeling circles. His first start of 2026 against the Cubs showed flashes, 5 innings with 7 strikeouts, and the only damage came on a couple of solo home runs at Wrigley, which, let's be honest, Wrigley can turn any fly ball into a souvenir. But the career numbers don't lie. Irvin has historically been uncomfortable facing this Dodgers lineup, and his 2025 season was one to forget, finishing 9-13 with the highest earned run average among qualified pitchers and a league-leading 38 home runs allowed. The Dodgers have Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Tucker, and Will Smith stacked through this order. That's a gauntlet of all-stars and MVP caliber bats that can punish any mistake, and Irvin's tendency to leave the ball up in the zone is exactly the kind of flaw this lineup feasts on. The Dodgers also carry a dominant edge in bullpen depth with the offseason addition of Edwin Diaz to an already stacked relief corps. Yesterday's 13-run outburst wasn't an accident. It was the floodgates finally opening for a team that's been working counts and getting on base at a solid clip since opening day. And now that they've tasted blood at Nationals Park, the confidence is there. As our first pick for this matchup, the Los Angeles Dodgers to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Speaking of yesterday's series opener, that 13-6 final score should tell you a lot about what kind of environment we're working with in this matchup. Nationals Park has been a launching pad in recent meetings between these two clubs, with 4 of the last 5 games played between the Dodgers and Nationals at this venue sailing over the projected total. That's not a coincidence, and it's not a fluke. There's a real structural reason for it. When you pit a Dodgers offense loaded with power hitters against a Nationals pitching staff that ranked near the bottom of the league in earned run average last season, you get crooked numbers on the scoreboard. Glasnow, for all his brilliance, isn't a pitcher who shuts down every lineup to 0. He still gave up 2 runs in his first start this year, and the last time he faced the Nationals in a Dodger uniform, they actually tagged him for 6 earned runs across 5 innings. He can dominate, absolutely, but he's also the type of pitcher who'll give up a couple of runs before settling in. And in a game where both offenses are feeling themselves, a couple of early runs from both sides can snowball quickly. On the other side, Irvin's adjustments are real, but so are the concerns. His velocity is up a tick, the slider looks legitimately different, but we're still looking at a pitcher who surrendered 38 home runs last season and allowed the most runs of any National League pitcher after the All-Star break. The Dodgers just put up 13 against his teammate in the same rotation yesterday, and this lineup has a way of carrying momentum from game to game when the bats get hot. Washington's offense shouldn't be dismissed either. They were averaging over 6 runs a game coming into this series, and their team batting average has been one of the best in the league through the first week. C.J. Abrams has been a force, Joey Wiemer has been scorching at the plate, and their lineup has shown a real ability to put together big innings against quality arms. Put it all together, two offenses that have been scoring at a healthy pace, a pitching matchup where both starters have shown a willingness to surrender runs even in their best outings, a ballpark that has played hitter-friendly in this head-to-head series, and the recipe practically writes itself. Yesterday's blowout wasn't just a one-off, it was a preview of the offensive firepower that both of these teams are capable of generating in this particular venue. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Miami Marlins versus New York Yankees. There's something poetic about a pitcher walking into the visiting clubhouse at Yankee Stadium, knowing full well where every hallway leads, because just 3 months ago he was on the other side of this rivalry. Ryan Weathers, the left-hander the Yankees acquired from Miami back in January for a package of 4 minor leaguers, gets the ball tonight in only his second career start in pinstripes, and the storyline practically writes itself. This is a revenge game in every sense of the word, folks. The Yankees sit at 6-1 on the young season, the best record in the American League, and honestly, it hasn't even been close. Their pitching staff has posted a combined 1.01 earned run average through 7 games, which according to MLB researcher Sarah Langs, includes a starting rotation earned run average of 0.53, the lowest recorded mark through a team's first 6 games since earned runs became an official stat back in 1913. That's not a typo. Max Fried has been absolutely untouchable with 13.1 scoreless innings across his first 2 outings, and Cam Schlittler looked like a 10-year veteran when he blanked the opposition over 6.1 frames in his start. The bullpen hasn't been any different either, with arms like Jake Bird, Tim Hill, and Brent Hedrick combining for spotless work out of the pen. Yesterday's Game 1 of this series told you everything you need to know. The Yankees won 8-2 and the Marlins managed just 4 hits while batting .133 as a team. Aaron Judge cranked a home run with 3 RBI, Ben Rice went yard with 3 RBI of his own, and the Bronx felt like October in early April. Now the Marlins, sitting at 5-2, have genuinely had a nice start, but let's pump the brakes for a second. Every single one of those wins came against the Rockies and the White Sox, 2 teams that were arguably the worst in baseball over the past 2 seasons. Miami swept Colorado at home, took 2 of 3 from Chicago at home, and sure, the vibes were good, but yesterday was a reality check. Yuri Perez, who many consider the best player on Miami's roster, couldn't find the strike zone, walking 6 batters in just 4 innings and getting tagged for 4 earned runs. Tonight, Max Meyer takes the hill for the Marlins, and while Meyer's got real talent, particularly that wipeout slider that generated a 42.4% whiff rate last season, his 2026 debut didn't exactly inspire confidence with a 5.40 earned run average. He's also coming off hip surgery that ended his 2025 campaign early and only threw 64.2 innings all of last year. On the other side, Weathers already showed what he's capable of in his Yankees debut against Seattle, punching out 7 batters in 4.1 innings while allowing just a single run. His fastball was sitting in the upper 90s during spring training, and he even touched 101 miles per hour, which, among left-handed starters, is surpassed only by 2-time Cy Young winner Tarek Skubal. The intangible factor here is that Weathers spent parts of the last 2 seasons with these exact Marlins hitters. He knows their tendencies, he knows their weaknesses, and there's a little extra fire in the belly when you're facing the team that traded you. The Yankees are also playing in front of their home crowd after spending the entire first week of the season on the road, sweeping the Giants in San Francisco and taking 2 of 3 from a Mariners squad that nearly made the World Series last fall. As our first pick for this matchup, the New York Yankees to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Meyer's slider is legit, and that's the part of this game that keeps things interesting from a scoring perspective. When he's locating it, hitters look foolish, and even in a debut that produced a 5.4 earned run average, he still racked up 5 strikeouts. Weathers, meanwhile, whiffed 7 Mariners in under 5 innings, and his velocity alone is the kind of thing that forces hitters into defensive swings and weak contact. You've got 2 young arms on the mound who both possess genuine swing and miss stuff, and that alone sets the table for a lower scoring affair. Here's where it gets really compelling though. The Yankees' pitching infrastructure right now is operating at a level we almost never see this early in a season. Their bullpen has been borderline perfect, and if Weathers can give them 4 or 5 solid innings like he did last time out, the bridge to guys like Fernando Cruz, whose splitter Austin Wells has called one of the best pitches in baseball, and closer David Bednar keeps runs off the board in a hurry. Yesterday's 8-2 final might trick people into thinking the bats are fully awake, but the Marlins only managed 4 hits, and that game was really decided by walks and a couple of long balls rather than a sustained offensive attack. Miami's offense looked potent against Colorado and Chicago, sure, but remember the quality of pitching they were facing. Tonight they're staring down a lefty throwing 99 who used to share a clubhouse with them, backed by a bullpen that hasn't blinked all week. The weather in the Bronx tonight is calling for around 69 degrees with mostly cloudy skies and only about a 10% chance of rain, which is comfortable but not exactly the kind of humid, ball-carrying summer air that inflates run totals. April baseball in the Northeast tends to suppress fly ball distance, and with Meyer being a fly ball pitcher by nature, Yankee Stadium's short right field porch might not play as dangerously as it would in July. Both teams have arms capable of controlling this game, and with the Yankees' pitching staff showing 0 signs of regression, and Meyer's slider keeping him in most at-bats even when the fastball isn't perfect, this feels like a classic early-season pitcher's duel waiting to happen. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Milwaukee Brewers versus Kansas City Royals. Friday's rainout in Kansas City set up a split doubleheader on Saturday, and honestly, the second game of that twin bill might be one of the most lopsided pitching matchups of the entire early season. The Royals are sending Seth Lugo to the mound, and right now, Lugo looks like a man on a mission. In his 2026 debut against the Braves, a team that had already won its first 2 games of the year, Lugo went 6 1/3 scoreless innings, scattering just 5 hits with 0 walks. He threw 55 of his 77 pitches for strikes, and he didn't even need to reach back for his best stuff to dominate. That outing was a reminder of why he finished as the American League Cy Young runner-up back in 2024, when he posted a 3 earned run average across 33 starts and over 206 innings pitched. Here's the thing about Lugo, he's not just some guy having a nice little stretch. Since joining the Royals ahead of the 2024 season, he's pitched to a 3.48 earned run average over 352 innings in Kansas City, making him one of the most dependable arms in the franchise's modern history. The Royals rewarded that consistency last July with a 2-year extension worth $46 million, and he's clearly pitching with the confidence of a guy who knows he's the ace of this staff. Against the Brewers specifically, Lugo has been a problem for years. Over 10 career appearances against Milwaukee, he owns a 2.31 earned run average with 26 strikeouts in just over 23 innings. That kind of track record against a specific opponent isn't a coincidence. It's a matchup advantage you can't ignore. Now look at who Milwaukee is countering with. Brandon Sproat is a 25-year-old right-hander making just his 5th career start in the big leagues. He came to Milwaukee this offseason as part of the trade that sent Freddie Peralta to the Mets, and while the tools are intriguing, the results so far have been rough. In his 2026 debut last Sunday, Sproat got absolutely hammered, giving up 7 runs on 6 hits, including 3 home runs, while walking 4 batters in only 3 innings of work. His career numbers at the major league level sit at a 6.98 earned run average across a grand total of 20 2/3 innings. That's barely a full game's worth of experience stretched across 2 seasons. You can talk about his prospect pedigree all day. He struck out nearly 30% of hitters during his second-half surge in AAA last year, but pedigree doesn't face Bobby Witt Jr. Witt led the entire sport in hits for the 2nd consecutive season in 2025, racking up 184 knocks after recording 211 the year before. And Witt's not alone in this lineup. Vinny Pasquantino slugged 32 homers with 113 RBIs last season. Carter Jensen announced himself with a monster September audition, and Jonathan India showed flashes of why the Reds once gave him a Rookie of the Year award, dropping a grand slam just this past Wednesday. Milwaukee's lineup is certainly talented, but it's also hurting right now. Jackson Chourio, their 22-year-old star outfielder who hit 21 homers and stole 21 bases last year, is on the injured list with a fractured left hand suffered during the World Baseball Classic. His return isn't expected until mid to late April at the earliest. First baseman Andrew Vaughn is in even worse shape, out until mid-May after undergoing surgery for a broken hamate bone on opening day. Those are two lineup anchors that simply aren't available, and that kind of offensive void is hard to paper over against a pitcher as sharp as Lugo. Kansas City also benefits from a meaningful home field edge this season. The Royals brought the outfield fences in by 8 to 10 feet at Kauffman Stadium and dropped the wall height from 10 feet to 8.5. The goal was to transform what had been the second most spacious outfield in baseball, trailing only Coors Field, into something closer to a neutral environment. Those new dimensions should play nicely for the Royals' power bats, and they add another layer of comfort for a team already sitting at 2-1 at home this year. The Brewers have been electric early with a 5-1 record, best in the National League, but sustaining that run production on the road with a depleted lineup against an ace-caliber arm is a tall order. The pitching gap here is massive, the home environment favors Kansas City, and the Brewers just don't have the horses in their lineup right now to overcome that kind of disadvantage. As our first pick for this matchup, the Kansas City Royals to win outright on the money line as home favorites is our full-game side pick. Milwaukee's offense has been scorching to start the year, averaging 7.5 runs per game, which leads all of baseball. That number is eye-popping on paper, but context matters. A huge chunk of that production came against the White Sox in a 3-game sweep to open the season, and Chicago's pitching staff was one of the worst in the majors last year. The Brewers followed that up with a series win over Tampa Bay, where the bats stayed mostly warm, but facing Seth Lugo in a comfortable home setting is a completely different animal. Lugo's season debut was a masterclass in efficiency. He didn't issue a single walk against Atlanta and kept hard contact in the park even when hitters squared him up. Multiple deep fly balls from Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, and Michael Harris II traveled over 105 miles per hour off the bat and still stayed in the yard. That kind of command doesn't just limit runs, it tends to shorten at-bats and keep pitch counts low, which means Lugo could work deep into this game. On the other side, you might expect a struggling pitcher like Sproat to give up a crooked number, but Kansas City's bats haven't exactly been thundering out of the gates. The Royals are hitting just .244 as a team with an on-base percentage of .319, both figures that land in the bottom third of the league. They're scoring only 4.40 runs per outing, and their strikeout numbers rank near the basement of the sport. Here's what makes this interesting. Even though the fences came in at Kauffman Stadium, the Royals' approach hasn't suddenly shifted to an all-or-nothing power game. They've hit 6 homers through their first 6 games, which is decent but not exactly alarming for someone hoping this game stays low. And let's not forget this is game 2 of a doubleheader, meaning both bullpens could already be taxed from the afternoon contest. When relievers are gassed and starters know they need to eat innings, the game often settles into a more conservative rhythm. The missing bats for Milwaukee really matter in this conversation too. Without Chourio and Vaughn in the lineup, the Brewers lose 2 hitters who combined for over 40 homers and nearly 200 RBIs between them last season. That's not production you can just replace with guys called up from the minors or shifted from the bench. Milwaukee's bullpen has been outstanding so far, ranking second in the majors by expected fielding independent pitching, so even if Sproat stumbles, the relievers could limit the damage. But on the flip side, Lugo should shut the door on the Brewers' offense for at least 6 solid innings, creating a ceiling on how many combined runs we're likely to see. The Royals have historically been an under-friendly team at home as well, hitting the game total under in 49 of their last 76 home contests. When you pair a dominant starting pitcher against a short-handed lineup, add a second game of a doubleheader dynamic, and factor in a Kansas City offense that's still finding its footing, the scoring environment looks compressed from both directions. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full-game total pick. Atlanta Braves versus Arizona Diamondbacks. There's something about a team that just won't let you breathe, and right now, the Atlanta Braves are that team. They walked into Chase Field 2 nights ago and dropped 17 runs on Arizona like it was batting practice, and they're following it up with another dominant pitching performance as this series rolls on. Sitting at a record that could be 6-2 or better by the time first pitch rolls around Saturday, Atlanta looks like a club that's playing with house money and loving every second of it. Arizona, meanwhile, is limping through the early weeks, hovering around the 3 to 5 range and dealing with injuries that keep stacking up like unpaid bills. Saturday's pitching matchup gives us a fascinating subplot because Bryce Elder takes the mound for Atlanta against Michael Soroka, a former Brave who's now pitching in the desert for Arizona. There's a revenge narrative baked into this one, and you can feel it. Soroka was electric in his Diamondbacks debut against the Tigers, tossing 5 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts and even throwing an immaculate inning, the first one in all of Major League Baseball this season. That's eye-catching, no doubt. But here's the thing, context matters. Those 10 strikeouts came against a Detroit lineup, not the same beast as an Atlanta order that's slashing .281 with a .464 slugging percentage through the first week and change. Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, this lineup punishes mistakes in bunches, and Soroka's history of health concerns after multiple Achilles injuries means his stamina and consistency over a full game remain question marks. He threw just 89 pitches in his debut before Torey Lovullo pulled him, wisely choosing not to push him further. That's a short leash, and it means Arizona's bullpen, which currently owns one of the worst earned run averages in baseball, is going to be asked to cover a lot of innings again. On the other side, Bryce Elder is quietly putting together the kind of resurgence story nobody expected. He was an all-star back in 2023, then cratered with back-to-back seasons over a 5 earned run average. But something clicked late last year. Over his final 7 starts in 2025, Elder posted a 2.82 earned run average with a 41-8 strikeout-to-walk ratio, and he carried that right into 2026 with 6 shutout innings against the Athletics in his season debut. He's introduced a cutter this year, giving him another weapon against left-handed hitters, and his 4-seam fastball velocity has ticked up into the 93 to 94 range. Manager Walt Weiss trusts him, the clubhouse energy is rolling, and Elder has the benefit of pitching behind a defense that's converting balls in play into outs at one of the highest rates in the league. Arizona's lineup, honestly, is a shell of what it should be. Jordan Lawlar just went down with a fractured wrist from a hit by pitch in Game 1, and he's out at least 6 weeks. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is still rehabbing a torn ACL from last September. Pavin Smith is on the injured list with elbow inflammation. Adrian Del Castillo is nursing a calf strain. That's 4 lineup contributors unavailable, and it shows. Arizona's team batting average sits at just .226, and their offense has been wildly inconsistent when Corbin Carroll and Kettle Marty aren't carrying the load by themselves. You're essentially asking Tim Tawa, James McCann, and a stitched-together supporting cast to keep pace with the deepest lineup in the National League. Atlanta's pitching staff carries a 2.00 earned run average and a 0.90 WHIP, numbers that are elite by any standard. The Braves have also covered the run line in 23 of their last 26 road games, and they've won 18 of their last 26 away from home. The momentum, the talent gap, the health disparity, it all points one direction. As our first pick for this matchup, the Braves to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Chase Field has always been a place where the ball flies, and this weekend should be no exception. The retractable roof keeps conditions controlled, but the park itself still plays as one of the more hitter-friendly venues in baseball. When you combine that environment with the personnel on the mound, things get interesting. Bryce Elder, for all his late-season magic in 2025 and his strong debut this year, is still a pitcher who allowed 24 home runs across 28 starts last season. He's a sinker ball guy at his core, and when he leaves pitches elevated, they get punished. Michael Soroka's debut was brilliant, but he's still working his way back from years of injury setbacks, and 5 innings on a short pitch count is likely the ceiling again on Saturday. That means both bullpens are going to be involved for multiple innings, and that's where the floodgates tend to open. Arizona's relief corps has been especially vulnerable, owning one of the worst bullpen earned run averages in baseball through the early going, and their strikeout rate with runners in scoring position sits near the bottom of the league. Atlanta's bullpen has been much better, but even good relievers give up runs in hitter-friendly parks over extended outings. The Braves' offense doesn't need much of an invitation. They dropped 17 on Arizona 2 nights ago, and Ozzie Albies is swinging the bat like a man possessed, collecting 3 hits including a home run in the game before this one. Drake Baldwin has been a pleasant surprise with a team-leading home run count, and Olson always seems to find his power stroke in parks with short porches. On Arizona's side, even with the injuries, Corbin Carroll has been their best hitter with a .292 average and a pair of home runs, and Ketel Marte remains one of the more dangerous bats in the National League West. Nolan Arenado, who's now settled in at third base after joining the Diamondbacks, brings postseason pedigree and a bat that can still change a game in one swing. The talent is there to push runs across, even if the depth behind them is thin. Looking at the head-to-head trends, overs have cashed in 7 of the last 10 meetings between these two clubs. The series opener already went way over, and the pitching matchup Saturday features two starters whose recent track record suggests they'll be pulled early, leaving the middle innings to bullpen arms in a ballpark that rewards aggressive swings. Everything about this setup screams crooked numbers on the scoreboard. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Chicago Cubs versus Cleveland Guardians. All right, let's talk about the Cubs heading into Progressive Field on Saturday night to take on the Guardians in what's shaping up to be a fascinating clash of two teams trying to figure themselves out in early April. Cleveland just wrapped up a home opening win on Friday night, taking down Chicago 4-1 in a game that honestly felt heavier than the final score suggests. And here's why. The Cubs walked into that ballpark with all the confidence of a team that had just taken 2 of 3 from the Angels, sitting pretty at 3-3, only to watch their young stud Cade Horton, the guy who finished as the National League Rookie of the Year runner-up just last season, get pulled from his start after throwing only 17 pitches with right forearm discomfort. That's a gut punch, folks. No other way to describe it. Horton is headed to the injured list and will travel back to Chicago for imaging, and this is a Cubs team that was already operating without ace Justin Steele, who's still recovering from his UCL surgery last April and isn't expected back until late May. Jordan Wicks is also out. And Seiya Suzuki, the guy who popped 32 home runs and drove in 103 runs for them in 2025, he's been on the IL since spring with a PACL sprain in his knee from the World Baseball Classic. He's currently doing a rehab stint down at AA Knoxville and won't be available for this series. So you've got a Cubs lineup that's been stripped of some serious firepower and a pitching staff that's running out of arms it can depend on. Now flip to Cleveland. The Guardians are the two-time defending American League Central champs, coming off an 88-win campaign where their pitching staff posted a 3.7 earned run average as a unit. Yeah, they lost Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz to the whole gambling and pitch rigging scandal, both of them currently on unpaid non-disciplinary leave with a federal trial looming, and that's a significant blow to the bullpen especially. But the guys they've got stepping in are doing the job. Cade Smith has already notched 2 saves, Connor Brogdon picked up his second win on Friday, and the depth behind Gavin Williams and Tanner Bybee at the top of that rotation gives this pitching staff real teeth. On the offensive side, the story of this young season for Cleveland has been rookie Chase DeLauder, who hammered a 2-run homer on Friday for his 5th long ball in just 8 games. 5 home runs in 8 games, tied for the American League lead. The kid had 4 in his first 3, something no big leaguer had done since Trevor Story back in 2016. Jose Ramirez got off to a brutal 4 for 28 start, but he found his first homer against the Dodgers earlier in the week and looked like he was starting to warm up. Saturday's matchup puts Shota Imanaga on the bump for the Cubs against Slade Checkany for the Guardians. Imanaga's first start of the season didn't go the way he or Craig Counsell wanted. He gave up a 3-run home run in the first inning against Washington and finished with that inflated 7.20 earned run average. Now, the talent is undeniable. This is a guy who's gone 24-12 in his career with a 3.34 earned run average and nearly 300 strikeouts, but 2025 was a fight for him. He went 9-8 with a 3.73 earned run average and saw his home run numbers balloon, particularly in the back half of the season. There's been encouraging velocity in spring, sitting 92 and touching 94, but the execution hasn't clicked yet. Cecconi on the other side had an ugly first start too, carrying a 12.46 earned run average into Saturday. Sounds alarming on the surface, but his body of work in 2025 tells a different story. He went 23 starts and 132 innings with a 4.30 earned run average and a 1.19 WHIP for Cleveland, posting elite command numbers with a walk rate in the 85th percentile among all MLB pitchers. He was sharp in spring training this year, noticeably sharper than his first camp with Cleveland, so the first outing may just be opening week rust. The big advantage here is situational. Cleveland is at home, riding momentum from a strong opening road trip where they took 2 of 3 from the defending World Series champion Dodgers. They just got the emotional lift of a home opening win. The crowd at Progressive Field is going to be buzzing on a Saturday night on national television on Fox. The Cubs, meanwhile, are reeling. Their bullpen ate a ton of innings on Friday after Horton went down, and the psychological weight of watching another young pitcher walk off with a forearm issue on a team that has been snake-bitten by injuries, that stuff lingers. Chicago's been alternating wins and losses all year. They haven't been able to string together any kind of consistency, and now they're heading into the second game of a road series in a worse position than when they arrived. Alex Bregman, the big off-season signing at 5 years and $175 million, has shown flashes with 2 home runs and that trademark plate discipline, but hitting .208 through 6 games isn't exactly carrying the load yet. Ian Happ has 3 dingers, sure, but the Cubs as a team are slugging just .356 and hitting .227. This is a lineup that hasn't found its groove, and they're walking into a Guardians club that, despite their own offensive struggles at .189, at least has the pitching infrastructure and home field energy to squeeze out tight wins. As our first pick for this matchup, the Cleveland Guardians to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Here's something worth paying close attention to. The weather forecast for Saturday evening in Cleveland is calling for a high around 78 degrees, but with cloudy skies, potential scattered thunderstorms later in the day, and winds coming from the south at 15 to 25 miles per hour. Friday night was the warmest March or April opener at Progressive Field since 1992. And while Saturday looks warm again, a 60% chance of rain and gusty storms add a layer of unpredictability that usually doesn't favor big offensive outbursts. When you've got threatening weather and gusting winds in a ballpark that already plays neutral to slightly pitcher-friendly, conditions get tricky for hitters to square up the ball consistently. Progressive Field in early April is about as cold weather baseball as it gets, and even on a warm night for April standards, the atmosphere and possible rain delays have a way of cooling down lineups. Both of these offenses are struggling. The Guardians are hitting .189 as a team. The Cubs are at .227. Neither club has found an offensive rhythm this early in the season, and adding 2 pitchers who both have legitimate track records of keeping games close only reinforces the lean here. Imanaga, despite the rough first outing, is a talented left-hander who's shown throughout his career he can go deep into games and limit damage. He had a 3.34 career earned run average heading into 2026 for a reason. Seikoni, when he's right, is a command-first pitcher who limits free passes, and he threw 132 innings last year with just a 5.9% walk rate. The Guardians' pitching staff as a whole was one of the better units in the American League in 2025, and even without Clays, they've managed to hold opponents to just 29 runs through their first 7 games. Friday's game finished 4-1, and that was the one with the Cubs' best arm, Horton, going down and bullpen arms having to scramble. With 2 legitimate starters taking the mound Saturday and both lineups ice cold, the scoring environment just doesn't look explosive. You combine the weather, the cold bats on both sides, the pitching pedigree, and a Progressive Field backdrop that doesn't artificially inflate runs, and everything points in one direction. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.